This is a very small crowd. What do you think? Thank you so much for coming by. It's wonderful. On a gorgeous day like this, you've decided to come down here, have a couple of beers and a glass of wine. That's wonderful. You know, the Branham300, as Andrew pointed out, is a labor of love. We did this about 21 years ago, and I said this earlier today. The reason why we did it was not to promote Branham necessarily, but you know, our brand's dragged along with it. It's to promote the Canadian ICT sector. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, we have one of the best technology sectors worldwide, bar none, right? One of the things that we always need to do and remind ourselves, because in good Canadian form, we don't always market ourselves, and we got to do a little better job of that every day. So when you walk in your office, think about marketing going forward. Again, I want to thank the sponsors today, EY, TechNX, Castlebrock Lawyers, and York Region, who are our event sponsors today, as well as Difference Capital, our platinum sponsor for the 2014 edition of this year's listing. The very first comment I want to make, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Welcome, tech is back. And I hope I convince you through this presentation. So say it with me. Tech is back. Tech is back. Very good. Thank you. All right. So the Branham reception today and the official publication of the 2014 edition of the listing on Branham's website that was released yesterday is the end of a long process of surveying and collecting data from close to 1,000 firms in Canada from coast to coast. This marks our 21st anniversary, 21 years, and I'm only 48. No. I know. This a major milestone not only for the list itself, but also in effectively promoting and celebrating the achievements of so many across Canada's tech industry over the years. A lot of effort goes into this building this list, and I would like to take this opportunity right up front to thank my Branham300 team, and that is Andrew Bisson, Christian Gravel, and Rob Chapman, who's back in Ottawa, for their enormous efforts on this tremendous initiative. And the other people I'd like to thank are you, the people in the vendor community. This list is full of private and publicly traded firms. It's one of the few, in fact, I've never seen a list that incorporates privately held, publicly traded companies, and we really should support your, or glad you were able to support it. I wish to thank all those companies, again, that participated and provided Branham with the data we needed to publish this list. It is with your help that over the last 21 years, and the Branham300 continues to be known as the most comprehensive listing of top publicly traded and privately held technology companies in Canada. Now, before getting into the data, I would like to remind the audience that we normalize the data on calendar year, right? Because that's the only way you can actually look at it on a longitudinal basis, right? And company fiscal year. This is not based on the last trailing 12 months, right? So there's some organizations that, you know, their outlook changed recently. Well, we've incorporated their fiscal year end in calendar 2013. Now, after a couple of years of instability and a nice comeback in 2011, we saw some stabilization in 2012. I'm happy to report that the Canadian ICT industry remained stable and it grew again in 2013. Something that we haven't seen for a little while now. While the markets continue to be stabilized and advanced over the past year, so did the top 250 ICT companies, which combined to set a new Branham cumulative total gross revenue record of over $85 billion. 250 companies, $85 billion. Growth can be found throughout this year's listing, with nearly 70% of those listed reporting increased revenues in 2013, and just under half, 47.2% of this year's listing, top technology players posted at least double-digit gains in sale. I think you're getting the drift a little bit. Tech is back, ladies and gentlemen. It's good.
What did you say, Wayne?
Tech is back.
Thank you.
Year-over-year growth, that's Michael Weckerly over there. Year-over-year growth improved to 2.4%, which was another step forward, an increase on 2012's growth rate. To get a better understanding where this growth came from, you need to look under the covers to see what really was happening. Now, BlackBerry, once again, the #1 company on our top 250 list this year. As the company continues to rebuild and stay competitive, I think they still and will be great. However, it will take some time and successful execution of new initiatives. By the way, I'm a diehard BlackBerry user. I think the Z30 is the best smartphone in the world, and they're top of the list, and I will continue to use them, and they're coming up with very innovative stuff, right? 2013 was a tough year for BlackBerry, however, as they posted just under $11.8 billion in fiscal year revenue, which is 40% decline year over year. This is something that had dramatic implications on the overall industry growth rate on the past year. If you were to net out BlackBerry's revenues, ladies and gentlemen, the industry performed even better with an overall growth rate of 13.3%. Ladies and gentlemen, tech is back. I sound like a priest, don't I? Tech is back. Given the recent release of BlackBerry's fiscal 2014 results, this will also have a dramatic impact on next year's listing as well, and perhaps may lead to change in the top spot, but a spot that BlackBerry has held for the last 5 years. But we believe at Branham that there's going to be a resurgence as they refocus on enterprise scale applications and focusing on verticalization going forward. Despite all this, we can see that there's a lot of good going on. The continued growth across the sector, in spite of the large declining revenue of BlackBerry, really demonstrates the true depth we have here in Canada. We are recognized as a world leader when it comes to this knowledge-based industry, and we continue to demonstrate this time and time again with a new crop of companies that continue to work their way up the ranks and others move on. Our focus on entrepreneurship and innovation are key to this in forever moving the industry forward. Now, I just want to talk about Toronto specifically going forward. Of the companies listed on the 2014 edition of the Branham300, 92 are headquartered in the GTA. Right? For those that think that the technology sector in Canada is centered in some other location worldwide, it's actually in Toronto. Up slightly from 90 in 2012. Of these 92 companies, 34 operate in the ICT professional services sector, 30 in software, 15 in IC hardware and infrastructure, and 12 are XSP players. In aggregate, these 92 companies combined to generate $23.5 billion in revenues, up 1.68% from 2012. I expect all of you to remember this, all right? Despite growing by a small number, it is very encouraging to see positive growth in the GTA. With this, GTA sits alongside other prominent technology hubs in Canada that also experienced growth in 2013, namely Calgary at 4.9%, Ottawa 11.23%, Vancouver at 14%, and Montreal, ladies and gentlemen, at 31% going forward. Now, there are several GTA-based companies on this year's ranking that experienced tremendous growth in 2013, which helped contribute to this year's increase in annual revenues. 26 companies appearing on this year's Branham300 that are headquartered here in Toronto experienced growth rates of 25% or higher. Heading up this group was Smart Employee Benefits, and I know there's a whole crew here from Smart Employee Benefits, a leading provider of technology and health benefit solutions and services. Smart Employee Benefits experienced a whopping 233% growth over the past year and had total revenues of $10 million. With such high growth, Smart Employee Benefits topped this year's top 10 growth companies list, is also one of our top up-and-comers to look out for. This is a company that's less than 3 years old, ladies and gentlemen. Following Smart Employee Benefits with a 2,000% increase in annual revenues was Toco Media, which provides sales and marketing platforms for product manufacturers. That high growth helped launch Toco Media into the top 250 at the 249th spot for the first year on the listing. Rounding out the top 3 growth companies in Toronto, also experienced a 177% increase in sales, was Obero Solution, who is also on our up-and-comers list. Outside the top 3, there are Redknee, NTG, Highvale, Finicet, Transgaming, Addictive Mobility, which are a few more examples of tremendous growth going forward. The GTA technology scene has come a long way in the recent years to now being recognized as a prominent technology hub, not only within Canada or North America, but also throughout the globe. There are several regions that comprise this GTA, and when you look outside the city of Toronto, which has the largest cluster of ICT companies on our top 250 list, 48 in total, the York region also comes up as the leading hub for Canadian technology innovation and talent with 29 companies on our 250 list, putting it on par with other recognized ICT hubs across Canada, including centers like Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the interesting things about Canada, when you look at the distance between San Jose and San Francisco, and we don't look at it this way in Canada, it's approximately 125 miles. When you look at the east end of Toronto and take it to the west end of Kitchener-Waterloo, it's about 125 miles. It's the 3rd largest technology cluster in North America. Just imagine if we had a strategy to harness that. And there's a lot of financiers now that are starting to recognize that going forward, and there are gold in them our hills, so let me tell you that. There are several clear examples of players across the region that are doing the right things to continue to build up the Toronto tech marketplace. I hope that the success that some of these companies are experiencing will become contagious and catch on with many others in the community. Now, while Canada's ICT industry stretches from coast to coast, the overwhelming majority of its activity takes place in 4 of Canada's 10 provinces. And those provinces are Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, representing 96% of the listed companies this year, as well as almost 98% of the 250 revenues in 2013. Although these figures indicate the majority of the technology industry in Canada is based in those provinces, I would be remiss if I didn't say that some of the country's most innovative and leading companies are located in cities like St. John's, Fredericton, Saskatoon. Companies like Mariner, Acreon, WBM Office Systems, and Push Interactions are clear examples of that fact. By the way, many years ago, we were the first to identify Radian 6, which, as you know, was acquired by Salesforce.com for well over $350 million. We also segment, by the way, the top 250 into 4 major categories: ICT hardware and infrastructure, ICT professional services, software, and XSPs, which consists of internet, wireless, managed, and application service providers. I am pleased to report that 3 of these sectors experienced positive growth in 2013, a strong indication that the majority of the industry experienced improved market conditions over the past year. The ICT professional services industry in Canada, led again by CGI, realized the sharpest rise in revenues. By the way, I just had a personal tour of their SOC in Ottawa, and that's a security operations center. It was amazing, ladies and gentlemen. I had 3 points of identification: a retina scan, and then a fingerprint scan, and then a retina scan. What? No, I just used the one. And so I went in here, and when I went into this facility, by the way, it was amazing. I walked into the SOC, and the minute I walked in, because I didn't have the highest level of security, and by the way, they're right beside CSIS in Ottawa, right? That tells you something. Everything shut down. All the monitors shut down, and all the people stood up like this and said, "Hi, Mr. Gudbranson, how are you?" Right? It was a fascinating experience. The software sector, led by OpenText, experienced greater gains in 2013, 20%. This is well above the growth rates experienced in 2012, which were 0.3%. Ladies and gentlemen, what a huge growth. In fact, we saw 10 companies in the top 25 software listing grow at a rate of 25% or higher in 2013, with 2 of those posting growth over 100%. The ICT hardware and infrastructure sector in Canada was the only major ICT subsector to experience a decline in 2013, dropping 20% from $31.5 billion to $25.1 billion in 2013. Some notable subsectors have gained traction in that area over the last year include security, IT staffing, digital media, software and services and cloud, as well as mobile Canadian companies. Canadian companies operating in areas saw significant growth in 2013, and we expect this to continue in 2014. Multinationals. There are many representatives from multinationals in our country, and some of them are here. They're incredible players in our industry, by the way, incredible players. We strive to assemble the ranking of the top 25 ICT multinationals in Canada. Although these players their roots are not inherently in Canada here, these companies play a big role, having world service and world product mandates in terms of employment, encouraging innovation, and stimulating an ecosystem. These companies, comprising the year's top 25 listing, fell from last year's growth of 5% to an over 0.3%. As compared to the industry average of 2.4% for the top 50, we can see how strong our homegrown Canadian companies were this year. This year's multinational list is led by the likes of IBM, HP Canada, Microsoft Canada, Cisco, and Oracle Canada. All these players are world-renowned technology firms and have chosen to set up significant operations in Canada, a true testament to the skill and technical ability of Canada's workforce. Up-and-comers. This is the final list, ladies and gentlemen. The top 25 up-and-comers listing is the only category in the Branham300 that is not determined by revenue. We pick them internally. We look at 75 to 100 companies. We take a look at them in terms of their product capability, their point of differentiation, how disruptive they are, and how disruptive their marketing strategy is. The companies landing on this listing are the leading edge and are pushing the limits in existing markets such as healthcare, security, and education, and paving the way in new areas like big data analytics, social media, mobile gaming, digital media, and cloud computing, to name but a few. Special mention goes out to Cloud Dynamics, FinMaven, Vanna Solutions, Atomic Reach, Seamless Mobile Health, Obero Solutions, Infradog, and Smart Employee Benefits, as they represent the GTA on this listing, this year's listing of top 25 up-and-comers. These young companies are led by solid management teams and are looking to disrupt their respective markets with their innovation and creativity. We look for big things from these companies in the near future. So in closing, I'm quite confident in saying that based on this year's list, the Canadian ICT industry has continued to forge ahead and will chart a solid path towards continued growth, with each of its sectors headlined by globally recognized leaders such as BlackBerry, OpenText, CGI, and the three telcos, among others, coupled with the fact that several of Canada's major ICT subsectors produced healthy growth in 2013. Branham forecasts that the ICT industry in Canada will continue to build on its successes in 2014. I'm also excited to announce that as the technology industry in Canada continues to evolve, so does the Branham300. This year, you will see that we have changed the mobile and SaaS listings to top 10s instead of top 5s. Again, this year we'll continue to go completely paperless and digital with our 21st edition of the listing. This year's launch is exclusively online, and you can get it at Branham300.com. I encourage you all to check out this site for more news on the list. Well, that's my presentation. I hope you've had a good snapshot of our Canadian technology industry for the past year. On that note, I wish to once again thank our sponsors, Different Capital, EY, TechConnects, Castlebrock Lawyers, and York Region, all of whom continue to support Canada's tech sector as well as Branham300 listing. With that, I wish to now to take this opportunity to introduce Martin Lundy from EY, who will introduce our next speaker.